This early access look is provided through a partnership with the EA Creator Network, formerly known as the EA Game Changers program. I'm Jason Sterling, and this is The Sims Horse Ranch. Okay, so as you just heard, I am, of course, Jason Sterling. This is going to be the first Horse Ranch video, the gameplay video, and an overall review of the pack itself. There are more in-depth reviews coming today of Build, Buy, Debug, the cast, assets, and the world of Chestnut Ridge itself. Now, as the pack's name suggests, horses are our pretty much primary component as far as gameplay goes in this pack. They took a lot of assets, I think, to develop, and it really shows. My experience with the pack, there were a few little glitches here and there. Of course, those were reported, mine and others. But by and large, the horses actually did operate flawlessly. And what goes into taking care of them, the gameplay that ties into them, also operated pretty flawlessly. You have 4 primary gameplay features that tie into horses. You have their care, you have riding, you have training, of course, and lastly and least, last and least, you have the competition and spectating horses at the competition. First and foremost, you have their everyday care, of course. That involves mostly feeding them, cleaning up after them, though, as well, making sure they have some sort of place of comfort. Now, I'll say, having seasons does make it a little bit harder because they will be affected by storms and cold and stuff like that. So when you have seasons, more quickly, you do need some sort of shelter. Horses can be taken away by animal services, if they get particularly miserable. That said, if you don't have seasons, of course, they'll sleep on the ground. Horses will just sleep on the ground, like next to you, if you go out camping or something of that sort. So, that does satisfy them as long as the weather is nice. Now, on feeding them, you have a horse trough, and you feed them prairie grass. Now, you can either buy the prairie grass, or if you're a rags to riches type of person, you can seek out patches of prairie grass and harvest it yourself, and then fill the trough with it, or hand feed the horses with it, or you can take the horse to the patch of grass and have them feed themselves. And horses also will walk up to patches of prairie grass and eat on their own. They also will eat at the trough on their own, although every so often it does help, kind of like with your cat, to call them over and say, hey, here's your food. You're acting like you're hungry. Here's your food. And they really don't have to act like they're hungry. You can highlight them as you see here, and you'll see their basic needs shown pretty easily. You can also ask them what's wrong, much like a cat or a dog, but this is a much easier way of going about it. Pretty much every morning when my Sim, the rancher, got up, I would highlight the horse, the sheep, and then later the goat, and see where their needs stood and maybe what I needed to do before I started the rest of my day. After that, of course, what do you really want a horse for? Riding, of course, is why you want a horse. You can ride the horse in any world in The Sims 4. Horses are a member of the family. That's both good and bad because they do take up a household slot in your family. So if you have a horse and a cat and a dog, that means you can only have 5 people in your family, right? Yeah, that's right. You can use mods, of course, to extend the number of people that you can have in one household. But be aware real quick, I'm going to add this disclaimer because the reason why households are set to 8 is because Maxis has recommended specs for the game. So if your computer just meets those recommended specs, let alone the minimum specs, adding more Sims to your household is going to lead to lag and stuttering. Still, since they are a member of the household, you can take them anywhere with you, including vacation worlds, with the exception of Batu. So if you wanted to ride your horse through the wilds of Star Wars, the official answer is no, you cannot do that. However, I do have a video on my channel from Back Around Journey to Batu where I do show how it is possible to take your pets, which are also forbidden on Batu. I'm a smuggler. I'm not really into the rules and the law, you know. So I took my cat and my dog and my familiar from Realm of Magic, all three to Batu at one time or another. And also infants aren't allowed at Batu, which is going to come as a big surprise to Disney. But I took my infant to Batu as well. There is a workaround so that you can get those creatures to Batu, and I suspect horses are the same way. But riding in any world is a big part of the new pack. You can take your horses with you anywhere and ride them, particularly in Chestnut Ridge. There's a really beautiful park there. It's actually where my sim lives. I love it. It's a great place to explore. But we won't get ahead of ourselves because that is coming up. The other thing you can do with horses is train them. So there are basically two types of training. You run around barrels and you do jumping, right? Actually, too, just riding your horse around, I think, over time does increase things like their dexterity and their ability to walk, I guess you would call it. And that actually does help in competitions as well. There's kind of it kind of shows where your horse is compared to what really is needed to typically win a competition when you go to enter, right? I did not find that it was that difficult to win the competitions, but we'll tackle those in a second. First, let me just say with training, you can either build training facilities on your lot. In Chestnut Ridge, you really don't need to. There's plenty of free public training spaces all over the place, including at the competition arena. But if you're going to go and take your horse, say, to Oasis or San Myshuno, well, you'll need to put in some sort of training facility if you want to train them. You don't have to train them. I have barely really taken my horse through any of those courses. That's why I don't think you really need them to win the competition, because I've rarely done it. I kind of tested it out around the barrels only. I've never done the jumping part, right? And so far, I've won gold in the beginner's level and silver in the beginner's level. Now, it is just the beginner's level, but then my horse was brand new. So the competitions are not that hard to win. They're also a rabbit hole. They are completely and utterly a rabbit hole when you send your sim there. And let me say this real quick. They are completely and utterly a rabbit hole, no matter what the trailer showed, right? No matter what the trailer showed. Because oftentimes EA's marketing is deceptive, and in this case, it exceedingly was, because I knew a lot of people who said, hey, on the trailer, it shows her going through the competition, and it shows her friends clapping for her as she wins, right? No, you saw her friends clapping at who knows what, I don't know, probably just some sort of, background programming that you can click on and have them just clap while you film it for storytelling. And you saw her going through the free public training area at the competition arena. When you go to do a competition, it is entirely a rabbit hole. And it is boring. It is. It is the weak point of horses as a gameplay. It doesn't really count as gameplay, in my opinion. You go there, you click on it, you select which, contest you want to enter. You stare at the building for X number of minutes, and then it pops up whether you won or lose. So far, I've always won, and what level you won and how much money you got. And you come out, and you don't even really have much of a moodlet even. Not really. And neither does your horse, if you're wondering. Neither does your horse. When it comes to spectating the competitions, dear God, I don't even know where to start with that because there's nothing there. There's nothing to spectate. You literally send your sim into a hole, into a black hole, and you stare at a building. You stare at an empty box, and nothing happens. They are in there for a while, and they come out. And again, in my case, I only tried it once. I'm not that interested in this part of it, but I only tried it once. He came out, didn't even have any sort of moodlet like inspired. I want to be a winner too. Nothing like that. He wasn't a better writer when he came out. It didn't say he's learned some tricks from other writers by watching the competition. No, nothing like that. He was hungry when he came out. He was hungry. So the competition is Rabbit Hole. I don't even count it as gameplay. Rabbit Hole gameplay is from the 1980s, as far as I'm concerned, text-based gameplay like that. And, or maybe the early 90s on PC, maybe, kinda. So anyway, yeah, that was the fourth leg of horses as far as gameplay goes. And thank God you only need 3 legs to hold a stool up, because the other 3 are actually pretty good. And horses are actually really good. I really had fun with them. I'm not a horse guy. I'm not a horse person. But in game, I really did like them. In The Sims 3, I never really used them. Almost never. I have really, really enjoyed riding my horse, hanging out with my horse, feeding my horse, taking care of my horse. It's been a lot of fun. Now, horses can either be created in casts or they can be bought. They can be both purchased outright, and you can also adopt a rescue horse, which is considerably cheaper. If you purchase it outright, it's about $1,000. If you go for the rescue horse path, it is $250. Of course, I think with a rescue horse, you get what you get and you don't throw a fit, right? You get what you get and you don't throw a fit. With the purchase path, $1,000, I think you can select from whatever's available to purchase. Now, what can I say, you guys? Go into casts and just make a horse. That part's free. That's actually free. So if you want a horse and you don't have any money, just go into casts and make one. That's how I would do it. Now, not only can you buy them, you can also sell them. So if you were wanting to, at least to a limited extent, maybe get into breeding horses, you could do that, because you could get a male and a female horse. They could breed, they produce a foal, and then after you've aged the foal up, or maybe not even that, I think you can sell the foal as well. You could sell that particular horse and earn money from it. So you could, to that sort of extent, you only have 8 slots, but to a certain extent, you could have a breeding ranch where you do breed horses and sell them on. And given that that is at least active gameplay, it's a pretty good addition for horses to be able to do that. I do like that. Now, the other thing that you can buy and sell and that are just fantastic are miniature animals. They really should be number 1 on my list because I love them so much. They're so cute. They're my little babies. But I put them number 2 because there is less to do with them. Now, there is a lot to do with them. There is. You take care of them like a horse. You need to feed them. You need to clean them. You need to talk to them. You can either shear the sheep or milk the goats in order to earn income. And if you become friends with them and they like you, they'll help you with gardening. Also, if you own, I guess just one is all it takes. On the community board, there are certain jobs that you can now do because you have a goat or a sheep and they go with you to the job. There are some other places that you for sure need a sheep. I'm not going to get into too many spoilers here, but trust me, there are times when you do need a sheep. Now, with all that care, you can have as many sheep and goats as you want, but be forewarned, they do get a little labor intensive when you're having to bottle feed every single one of them. They do need shelter of some sort. Now, my sheep always just slept in the stall with the horse. Slept on the horse's bed a lot. He had little goo-goo, like red, heart eyes for the horse all the time. And I'm sure that he thinks that horse is his daddy. It's not his daddy, but he thinks that it is and would follow him around a little bit. He was very adventurous, though. I lost him at one point. I almost died. I was in a dead panic looking for him. I couldn't find him. But eventually, through some miracle, he came bounding back up the road, just bouncing along, happy as could be. So I guess wherever he went, he had fun and he came back. Now, here's the great thing about sheep and goats and horses that I think is actually better than cottage living. They're not tied to any sort of object. So you can take sheep and goats with you anywhere. You can put them in your inventory and take them with you wherever you want to go. You can take horses with you anywhere because they're a family member. So they'll just travel with you just like a pet. That's one thing I think is really great and kind of an improvement over cottage living, which is not a slight. I love cottage living. It's one of my favorite packs. I really, really dug that pack a lot. I thought it was a lot of fun. So this is a great complement to that pack. But in this case, since horses and sheep and goats just kind of live in the sort of enclosure you make for them and otherwise have sort of the lay of the land, right? They can go wherever they want. I consider that kind of an upgrade and kind of an improvement. Okay, the other big money-making thing here is nectar making. Now, I will say right off the bat, because when it came out in the trailer, I was like, we can kind of do that with eco living. It does feel like kind of superfluous if you have both those packs. But I'll say right now, I have had more fun doing nectar making than I did in eco living for whatever reason. I don't know why, but it has been more fun. I've really enjoyed it. And I've made a ton of money from it. Maybe that's why I enjoyed it so much. One great thing that's added into nectar making is not just the stomp bucket, but the case that holds the bottles, the wine racks where you can age them up and let them age. Those actually fill up as you add the bottles to them, and you can see the bottles fill them up, and it's the actual bottle that you just made because the bottles are slightly different depending on the type of nectar you've just made. Now, I was blown away by that. It seems simple. It is kind of simple, although I think probably the programming for it is harder than we imagine. It always is. But it was so great, and it was so realistic. It's like I went to take my first bottle, and I thought I would just be dropping it in there like, kind of a chest or the refrigerator or something. It just disappears, and that's it. And probably the nectar rack, would always look empty until maybe it was full, and then it would change and look like it was full, right? But no, I put one bottle there, and one bottle appeared on the rack, and it looked like the bottle I just pulled out of inventory. So I thought that was a really cool addition to that and a nice kind of real life sort of feel to it. So I've been using the nectar making pack like crazy. I went out and I found some of the stuff I needed, kind of researching and exploring the world. I will say this, don't sell your bottles, let them age up. I'm going to make $1 million. I'm not even kidding you guys. As soon as I start getting into real gameplay, not just kind of this testing sort of gameplay, I'm going to sell all those bottles. Okay. As soon as I have access to all my packs, right now all I have is base game and this horse ranch, right? With this sort of test or early access type thing. But once I'm back in my own game for real, I'm going to sell all those bottles. I'm going to buy a ton of like solar panels, water collection. I'm going to have the most self-sufficient farm or ranch in all of Chestnut Ridge, right? All of Chestnut Ridge. So it has been a lot of fun. I've been really enjoying it. One last hint too, if you want to go through the trouble. Now, I've not done this myself. I should do it. Now that I think about it, I should do this. Make a basement, because I can make like a dirt basement, kind of like a dugout, that would kind of fit my house. But make a basement, because if you put your wine bottles down in the basement, they actually age up faster. Now, all of that work that we've just talked about, and it's a lot of work, because if you're growing your own fruits, to make your nectar, which you don't have to. You could try to harvest everything kind of in the wild, or I suppose you could go to the grocery store and buy it. But let me tell you, you're not going to you would make money over the long term, even if you bought the ingredients at the grocery store, you would. Because when you age that wine up long enough, I'm telling you, I almost said honey. Honey, let me tell you, I am telling you right now, I'm about to sell a $4,000 bottle of wine. And it's not even really good. It's just normal quality, and it's going to be $4,000 because it aged up, right? Now, to have to let it lay around for a while, but so what? I wasn't thirsty, and I didn't need the money for anything else. So that actually did work really, really well, so you could do that. But the work side of it, your horse, your sheep, your goats, your garden, your all this stuff, right? You can hire a ranch hand if you want. You can hire the ranch hand either from the community board, which there's one in each neighborhood in Chestnut Ridge, and those community boards can be placed in other worlds. You can go into the build by or the debug menu, the hidden objects menu. You can place those boards anywhere in any world, and from that board, you can hire a ranch hand. It's kind of expensive, about $100 plus $12 an hour, so it's kind of expensive. But you can hire a ranch hand. You can do a sort of odd jobs, right? They already kind of mentioned. You can do those sort of odd jobs. You can also buy horses from the board, and you can enter the competitions from the board. You don't actually have to go to the competition rabbit hole. I'm going to come back to that rabbit hole again coming up, because we're going to talk about all the rabbit holes in game, but you don't actually have to go there. You can do it through the board. The board also gives you information about locals around town, and some information about taking care of horses and stuff like that. It's kind of an information board as well. Now, we also have in this game a new addition to the dancing skill. We'll call it a skill, right? The dancing skill. Now, let me say again, when I saw the trailer, I said the dancing, it's a little, it's not a huge surprise because we have dancing. I won't call it superfluous because it is a different type of dancing. I wish it wasn't just a different type of line dancing, although admittedly that is a big thing in the country, in the country, right? Like rural people love that line dancing. So I'll give them that, but it is new. It took all new animations, and it is new. It's a new form of dancing. I particularly do like new forms of dancing added to the game. I would have preferred more of a fast-paced couples dancing, like swing dancing, or disco dancing. Disco's got a lot of swing in it as well. That's why I say swing dancing. It operates for a lot of different dance styles if you learn swing. So that's what I would have rather seen, but what we got is fine. I do think it's really cool, and like I said, it looks very country. It looks very familiar, believe me. If you've ever been on a cruise, it especially looks really familiar, so that's the other part, where it fits in really well, is if you wanted to make a pretend cruise shipping game, get this pack so that your Sims can go on vacation and line dance. The line dancing takes place at a place I've already in-game that I've affectionately called the Drunken Barn Dance nightclub, because it is set in a barn, and that's what you have in the country, right? Drunken barn dances. There's also a bar in town as well. I'm not counting that as gameplay because it's a bar and it's 9 years in, and we have a bar we always get bars because that's a base game venue, right? And I understand why they fall back on that a lot, but we do have a bar in game as well. Now, one of the other things you can do is exploration. This world is ideally set up for exploration. It is pretty large and open in the national park area where my sim lives. There's a lot to see and find there. You can search through prairie grass and come across things. You can fish there. You can harvest harvestables there. Like there's a grape bush there for sure. There's a place to camp there. It was so cool. I even had my sim camp there for a night, And there's a place to swim. There's a place to swim there. There is routable water there by a waterfall with a perpetual rainbow, and I loved it. Oh, my God. Again, it's where my sim lives. That's the smallest lot in the game. It's only 20 by 15. I don't care. I'm going to have my sim live by the waterfall with the forever rainbow. It was perfect. I love it. And it's not really a forever rainbow. It kind of comes and goes with the lighting, the way the lighting is, but I love it there. You can swim in the waterfall pool there, so it's excellent. It's a great place just to ride around. It's a great place to feel like you're just outside in nature. I know it's a game, I know. But when you're like me and you live in a cubicle like this, it is really nice to feel like you're outdoors with your sim. And if you're someone like me, or a lot of people, because this is pretty popular in The Sims 4, you like to take pictures, this is an excellent location for it. Absolutely beautiful. Now, when it comes to exploration, we've got 4 rabbit holes in game. I've already gone over one of them. It is the competition arena. Now, Jason, remind me, did you like it? I did not like it. I didn't like it. There are 2 other rabbit holes downtown, however. One is a clothing store, one is a grocery store. The clothing store is just an access point to intercast. It's fine. I would rather have those shells be a rabbit hole for something like that. I would kind of prefer maybe not a dress shop, maybe not a clothing store, since this is kind of a country town and a ranch town. I think it would have been better served with maybe some sort of equipment type store where maybe you could buy woodworking tables and stuff like that. But okay, to one side, that's where rabbit hole's fine with me. Would it be nicer if we had a store you walked into and you pointed at things and bought things? Yeah, but we do have that with the retail from Get to Work to a certain extent. And this sort of rabbit hole is better than the shell. I actually don't mind this sort of rabbit hole for a grocery store. You go to the grocery store, you enter the grocery store, you pick out what you want from the menu. The grocery store in Chestnut Ridge, of course, will sell you a goat and a sheep along with your groceries because it's a country grocery store, you guys. That's how it works in the country. So, yeah, those are 2 more of the 4 rabbit holes, and those are okay. Those are okay. I don't really mind those. Now, the last rabbit hole is actually in the national park area. Okay. Let me just state again, I don't like rabbit holes. I don't like rabbit hole gameplay. I don't like text-based choose-your-own adventure. That's the sort of thing I did when I was a kid, right? On our Apple IIe, you would have a text-based adventure, and it would say, hey, you're in a dark hallway. You're walking down a dark hallway, and do you want to turn left or right? Do you want to pick up this thing on the floor or whatever? That is 1980s video gaming, you guys. That is 1980s PC gaming. I don't know why anybody thinks it has a place in a AAA title in the 21st century, 40 years later in the 2020s. I can tell you right now, Jedi Fallen Order or Jedi Survivor or whatever it's called now. If Cal walked up to a temple and disappeared into the temple, and a title screen type thing, you know, a card pops up and says, Cal's in a dark hallway. Cal senses evil. Should Cal walk forward or should he leave? You know, should Cal light his lightsaber or should he use the Force? You know, if it said that and then you selected these different things and it said, ooh, Cal got scared and Cal left, and Cal comes out and you can't go back into that temple for the next 8 hours, you know, of game time or something, that would never stand with that gaming community, or pretty much any gaming community except for The Sims for some reason. Okay, let me get that out of the way. Now, let me also say that I understand the developers have what they have to work with. They have what they're given. They're given a certain amount of resources and they're said, hey, you know, there you go. There's what you have. There's what you can do. Good luck, right? Because EA, naturally, at the end of the day, it is EA, wants to make X amount of money. They want us to make X amount of money off this pack. And no matter what EA says, that's what it comes down to. Every subsidiary of every corporation has certain goals, certain financial goals they're expected to make, and they make that, in this case, by selling packs. So they have to have a budget for what they're going to put into the pack based on what they expect to get back from the pack. And in this case, I can tell, I will say this, what they had to work with, I do think they did the best job that they could. And I think it's probably the best choose-your-own-adventure, text-based adventure we have. And we have several so far in The Sims. I really do. And I think whoever designed it put in a lot of work and a lot of effort to make this more active than it typically is, where you actually have to go do things and come back in order to satisfy the challenges and in order to advance through the process to your next goal, right? So I can tell they put a lot of thought into it, because it's not just a simple cut and dry answer a few questions advanced type of thing. There are some active things that are tied into this pack, that are tied in to what you have to work with this pack, that you do have to do. So I'm going to say that right off the bat. I think they did the best job they could do. I think they've done the best job on this particular choose your own adventure, choose your own text adventure that they've done so far in The Sims. I really do. I think they did a fantastic job from that standpoint. And to some limited extent, it was enjoyable. I mean, I had a little bit of fun with it. There's the bad news. It got a little old. It got a little tiresome. You know, I prefer more active gameplay. Like, why do I not do careers where you just send your sim off the lot? I'd rather paint all day because I want to have something active. I don't want to just stare at a hole. And to make matters worse, to my way of thinking, it got a little repetitive. And again, there seem to be almost arbitrary times when your sim got kicked out of the cave, and then, you can't go back for 8 game hours, right? You can't just say, well, I'll just send him back in. His motives are still fine. You know, he's not tired yet, so I'll send him back in. No, the game says you can't go back in. Your sim's too tired. I'll decide if my sim is tired. I'll decide when I'm sick of being in that cave. And if he passes out as soon as he comes out of the cave and he pees himself and he dies of hunger, well, that's on me as a player, right? So that's one thing I really didn't like. It happened over and over and over again, well past the point of where I normally would have played, because I was just trying to play to find out what happens, mostly for video, and I still am not there. And so that's what I mean by it started to get tedious and repetitive. And the reward you got for being in this sort of challenge did not measure up to what you end up putting into it. Again, not too many spoilers, but that was the case. So all of that tied together, and especially the part where you had to leave and you couldn't come back for 8 game hours, made it feel like a mobile game. And if this is a test to see how much people like mobile gaming for the next Sims iteration, let me tell you right now, I don't like it. Okay, if I want to go back in the cave, I want to go back in the cave. I don't care if it's been 8 hours or 8 minutes in the game. I want to go back in. Now, rant over. So, okay, I think they did the best job they could with what they had to work with. Still came across monotonous, and it's still no place in a AAA title in the 21st century. Now, so pretty much we've gone over it, right? The successes and the failures of this expansion pack. Now, let's talk about the term expansion pack. There's been a lot of stuff tossed around about this feels like a game pack. This should have been a game pack. You know, why wasn't this? Well, someone actually said, why wasn't this free? Why wasn't this a kit? All of that sort of stuff. Let me say right now, there is as much stuff in this 1-for-1 as Cottage Living. Now, I didn't go compare it to every pack. I compared it to Cottage Living because it felt to me like kind of Cottage Living 2.0, right? Part 2. So 1-for-1, everything that was in Cottage Living is in here done in a different fashion. And like I said, in some cases, like I would say with horses and goats and sheep and the world done a little bit better. So from that standpoint, I do think it is an expansion pack. Okay. That's what I think. If you liked Cottage Living, if you felt it lived up to the price, if you purchased it, whatever you purchased it at, if you got it on sale, that's fine too. But whatever you purchased it at, then you're going to probably be just as happy with Horse Ranch because you're going to get just as much stuff and just as much playability again, if not a little bit better and a little bit more. I'm going to further say that I think in a lot of ways, these terms, expansion pack, game pack, stuff pack, are getting a little bit archaic. Expansion pack and stuff packs are 20 years old, those definitions. And a lot of times I see people comparing an expansion pack today to an expansion pack from 15 years ago, like in The Sims 3. I love The Sims 3, by the way. That's not a slight. It's an excellent game. I absolutely love it. Still play it today. But here's the deal. Those definitions were really made a long time ago. And if we're going to compare an expansion today to an expansion from 15 years ago, then we need to compare pricing as well, because the fact of the matter is that expansion should cost $60, not $40. With inflation, from the time The Sims 4 started till today, expansion packs should be up to about $55, just keeping pace with inflation. If you're talking about going back to The Sims 3, you're looking at closer to $60 or even more, depending on how far back you go. So if you want a bigger expansion pack, I get that because I do too. You're going to have to pay more money. You are. Because corporations are always going to expect to make at least what they made in the past. And one way of doing that is either raising prices or putting less in the box. So I do think that's kind of where that stands as far as those comparisons go. With me, I'm moving away from that idea of, is this an expansion? Is this a game pack? Is there enough stuff here to justify those definitions in that term? No. What I'm going to say is, do you think it's worth $40 here in the United States? Do you think it's worth whatever it costs in your local area? Just compare it to that. To compare it to whatever you're going to give up to own it. Okay? Because that's what it's worth. If you're going to, whatever you're giving up to own it, that's what it's worth. And you have to say, okay, yeah, what I'm going to get out of this, the enjoyment I'm going to get out of this is worth whatever I'm sacrificing to have it. Oh, I will say this, I would buy this pack. When I watched the first trailer, and by the way, the trailers kind of sucked for this pack. If anybody from EA Marketing is watching, I'm not trying to hurt your feelings. I'm not trying to hurt your feelings. Consider this constructive criticism. They sucked. Okay. The trailers for it did suck and really didn't, I don't know, maybe it's just really tough to kind of exhibit this sort of pack in an advertising form. I don't know. But I know that when I watched the first trailer, when I watched the second trailer, I was even more disappointed. Now, to be honest, by the point of the second trailer, I did have early access. But when I reviewed the trailer, when I did my reaction to it, I acted as if I didn't. Because I thought, if I didn't have access right now and I didn't know anything else, all I know is what's in these first two trailers, I would think, and I thought, I don't even know if I'd buy this. When I watched them, I really did think, hey, this might be one I definitely would wait to be on sale. Now, after playing with it, and all I had was base game and this pack, and I'm still caught up in it. I'm still rushing to play it all the time. Because as of right now, as the time I'm recording this, I do still have access to it as I'm recording this, and I love it. I've had a great time. I've had a great time with my horse. I love the miniature sheeps and goats. I really enjoyed nectar making a whole lot more than I thought I would. I haven't done a lot of dancing, but it's a fun venue in town. I love the build buy objects. I've built a ton of stuff for this game. And again, all I had was base game in this pack. And I feel like, oh my gosh, there's just so much I can do with the build buy in this pack. And I really did feel that way. Cast also, fantastic cast selections, different than we've ever had. worn out, dirty. You can see it in the cast video, of course, coming up, but worn out, dirty, like you've been working in it all day, stuff we don't have in game. So I really do like it, and I would buy it now at this point for sure. Now, whether you want to or not, that's fine. You don't have to. There's lots of other packs out there. And a lot of people are not into the United States from a Western standpoint and don't care about horses. But I will say that, yeah, I would buy it. I would buy it. I would really regret not having the build buy assets now and the cast assets. I love my horse. I love my sheep even more. When he was missing for almost a day, I thought I was going to die. He was my very first sheep. I named him. You know, I gave him a name. Here's my little baby, right? I thought I'm just going to die if he doesn't come back. What could have happened? Where did he go? You know, and I'm thinking, did I not feed him enough? Did I not hug him enough? I'm that bad of a parent. Anyway, he came back. He came back. But yeah, I got really attached to him. I did. I got really attached, and I love the world. The world's beautiful. Let me throw in real quick. I do a world video, but we'll throw in real quick in regard to this world. Sure. The trailers made it look like Strangerville 2.0. I felt the same way and I said the same way, but it really isn't. It really does feel a lot more like Utah, and I can promise you right now, Strangerville feels just like West Texas, and West Texas is not Utah. And in game, I think you will definitely see. You'll see during watching people's videos, hopefully some more of my own, but you'll see during watching videos that Chestnut Ridge is not Strangerville. The lighting's different. The landscaping's different. What is there and what it looks like is much different. So definitely it is a different world, and it has so much unique to it that I just can't recommend it enough. I really can't. And I will recommend, please hit like, subscribe, and notify. Catch the rest of my videos coming out, especially today. 4 of them launching today, and hopefully, fingers crossed, I don't know this yet as I don't have it done. A short will be coming later, showing off some of the scenics of Chestnut Ridge. So please hit like, subscribe, and notify. We'll catch some gameplay videos coming with my game, with my rancher, Shasta. That's coming beginning tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day, next day, probably for a while. And then eventually the RM Cascadian will also take place there with my normal RM Cascadian crew. So for the 3rd time, please hit like, subscribe, and notify. And in the meantime, thank you for watching.